In this video, I want to talk about factoring a quadratic expression. Here we have 7x squared minus 5x minus 2. And we want to see if we can factor this. Well, to do this, we're going to use something called the AC method. So that's where we're going to label each term here, each numerical value of each term, as A, B, and C. So here, A is going to be equal to 7. B is going to be equal to negative 5. And C is going to be equal to negative 2. All right, so the idea here is we're going to take A times C, which in this case is going to be 7 times negative 2, which is going to give us negative 14. Okay, so what we're looking for here is we're looking for numbers that are going to multiply together to give us negative 14, okay? And we are going to look for numbers that are going to add together to give us negative 5, okay? So we're looking for numbers. So these might be the same numbers we have here, but they might not be. So here we're looking for numbers that multiply together to give us negative 14, but also add together to give us B, which is negative 5. So we'll write this down. Numbers and add to negative 5. Okay, so if we look at factors of negative 14, we're going to have one minus 1, 2 minus 2, 7 minus 7, and 14 and minus 14. These are all factors that you could have here, okay? So we're looking for combinations of these and two numbers here that are going to also add together, that will multiply together to give us 14 and add to give us 7. So the numbers that will multiply are going to be 1 and negative 14. Those are not going to work. That's not going to add together to give us negative 5. Okay, so 1 and negative 14, that's no-go. We have negative 1 and positive 14. Well, negative 1 plus positive 14 is just positive 13, so that's a no-go. All right, and then we have 2 and negative 7. So if we have 2 and negative 7, 2 plus negative 7 is negative 5. So this is going to be our magic numbers here, so to speak. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 and negative 7, and we're going to rewrite our expression as follows. We're going to have 7x squared plus 2x minus 7x minus 2. Okay? All right. So what we can do now is we can try to go ahead and we should bring in, like I said before in our previous video, we should probably write this so we have a plus sign in the middle here. So this is going to give us 7x squared plus 2x plus negative 7x minus 2. And we can group this first one together as well. Okay, so in this first one here, we can go ahead and pull out an x. Okay, so we'll have 7x plus 2. And then in this next one here, if we pulled out a negative 1, okay, we're going to end up with 7x plus 2. Okay, so what we can do then is we can undistribute, so to speak. We can pull out 7x plus 2 here. So we'll have x minus 1 times 7x plus 2. And if you need a refresher on this, go back and watch the previous video where I discussed how this is just like undistributing a term here. Okay, that's all we're really doing here, is we're factoring out 7x plus 2. So we're going to have x minus 1 times 7x plus 2. And let's make sure this is right. What's really nice about these is because we have the FOIL technique, we can actually double check our answer very quickly. So what we can do is we can FOIL. So we can do our firsts. So x times 7x is going to give us 7x squared. X times 2 is going to give us 2x. Minus 1 times 7x is going to give us minus 7x. And minus 1 times 2 is going to give us minus 2. So rewriting this, we have 7x squared minus 5x minus 2, which is what we had to begin with. So in our fully factored quadratic is indeed x minus 1 times 7x plus 2. Okay, so let's take a look at this next one. Here we have 7y squared minus 13y minus 2. Okay, so here we have a is equal to 7, b is equal to negative 13, and c is equal to negative 2. So we take a times c, which is, again, I guess we get 7 times negative 2. Okay, which is negative 14. And we saw last time one that would give us negative 13. If we had previously here, we had 1 and negative 14, that was going to give us negative 13. So we can say that 1 times negative 14 is going to give us negative 14, and we're going to have 1 plus negative 14 gives us negative 13. So we are good. So a times b is going to give us, 1 times negative 14 is going to give us a times c, and 1 plus negative 14 is going to give us b. That's what we're looking for here. All right, so our magic numbers are 1 and negative 14. So we can go ahead and rewrite this as 7y squared plus 1y, so to speak, minus 14y minus 2. Okay, and now we can group things. Okay, so here we can put a parentheses here, and then we want to rewrite it with a plus sign. So we can write this as 7y squared plus y plus negative 14y minus 2. Okay, and we can group that here. So from here, we can go ahead and factor out a y from this first term. So we'll have y times 7y plus 1. Okay, and we'll have plus, or I guess we shouldn't say we have plus, yep. Well, if we factored out a negative 2 here, so we factored out a negative 2, that's going to give us 7y plus 1. And then we're able to factor out 7y plus 1 here, and we'll get y minus 2 times 7y plus 1. Okay, and that would be our answer. And just as an exercise for yourself, you should go back and practice the FOIL method to see if you can get back our original quadratic, which is 7y squared minus 13y minus 2. Okay, let's look at this one. Here we have 5x squared plus 16x plus 3. Okay, so here we're going to do our AC method again. So here A is equal to 5, B is equal to 16, and C is equal to 3. So here we have A times C is equal to 5 times 3, which is 15. So we're looking for numbers that multiply together to give us 15 and add together to give us 16. Okay, so if your B value is ever 1 greater than your A times C value, a good indication is that your numerical values are going to be that number and 1. So here we're going to let's try 15 times 1, that gives us 15, and 15 plus 1, that gives us 16. So we know that 15 and 1 are going to be our numbers. So we can write this as 5x squared plus 15x plus x, or you can say 1x, plus 3. Okay, and now we can write parentheses so that we can group this. So here we have 5x squared plus 15x. So we can pull out a 5x here, and that's going to give us x plus 3. And then we have plus x plus 3. And now we can factor out this x plus 3, and we get 5x plus 1 times x plus 3. And again, you should practice your FOIL method and go back and make sure that this actually gives you back 5x squared plus 16x plus 3. Okay, let's look at this one here. Here we have 8y squared minus 15y plus 7. So here, a is going to be equal to 8. B is going to be equal to, B is going to be equal to minus 15. And C is going to be equal to 7. So we have A times C is going to give us 8 times 7, okay, which is equal to 56. Okay. So our B value here is negative 15. So this one is not immediately obvious. So let's go ahead and start writing factors of 56. So we know that 1 write this out. Factors of 56. We know that 1 is a factor. So we have plus or minus 1 here. We're going to make sure we have both, because we could have a positive or negative 1. So plus or minus 1. We know 56 is even, so we have plus or minus 2. Okay. 56 is not divisible by 3. 56 is divisible by 4. So plus or minus 4. Okay, we have plus or minus 7. We have plus or minus 8. We know that if we have 4 as one of these here, 4 times 14 is going to give us the value we're looking for here. So we're going to do plus or minus 14, and then we're going to have 56 divided by 2 is going to give us 28. So we're going to have plus or minus 28. And then obviously we have plus or minus 56. So these are all of our potential factors here for 56. And so we need to find some combination of these that multiply together to give us positive 56 and add together to give us negative 15. So we can look at them in pairs. So 1 pairs with 56. Okay. We have 2 pairs with 28, 4 pairs with 14, and 7 pairs with 8, okay? So we want ones that multiply together to give us negative 15 and add together to give us, ones that multiply together to give us positive 56 and add together to give us negative 15. So I'm thinking that it's going to be negative 7 and negative 8, because if we take negative 7 plus negative 8, we're going to get negative 15. But if we take negative 7 times negative 8, we're going to get positive 56. Okay, so that's what we're looking for here. And you'll get, the more you practice these, the better you're going to get at recognizing what the solutions are going to be. This just comes with practice. I'm able to spot this because I've done this many, many times. But the more you do it, the better you will get at it. Okay, so our numbers are going to be negative 7 and negative 8. So we can rewrite this as 8y squared minus 7y minus 8y plus 7. And so now we can write this by grouping as 8y squared plus 7y plus negative 8y negative 8y plus 7. Okay? And then what we can do is we can factor out a y here. Oh, this should be a minus sign. Anyway, something didn't look right here. Sorry about that. Should be 8y squared minus 7y plus 8y plus 7. So if we factor out a y here, we're going to get 8y minus 7. Okay? And then we can factor out a negative 1 here to give us 8y minus 7. So we're actually going to have y minus 1 times 8y minus 7. Okay, so that would be our solution here. All right, so now let's take a look at some simpler examples. And we have a really nice situation when we have a leading coefficient with 1. And I'll explain the trick we can use for this. Okay, so we have a y squared plus 11y plus 30. We have a leading coefficient of 1. Let's do this one the simple AC method, but I'm going to show you a faster way to do it if you have a leading coefficient of 1. Okay, so what we can do is we can take A is equal to 1, B is equal to 11, and C is equal to 30. So A times C gives us 30. Okay. We want two numbers that add together to give us 30 or multiply together to give us 30 and are going to add together to give us 11. Okay. So we're going to have, if we look at factors of 30, we get plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3. We'll have plus or minus 5. We'll have plus or minus 6, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 15, and then we'll have plus or minus 30. Okay, so we want to find numbers that add together to give us 11, but also multiply together to give us 30. So we can probably go ahead and assume 1 and 30 are not going to work. Okay, so we could have 15 plus negative 2. Well, we need to be positive, so that's not going to work. 2 and 15 aren't going to work. 3 and 10 aren't going to work. How about 5 and 6? So we have 5 and 6. So 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 plus 6 is 11. So we can rewrite this as y squared plus 5y plus 6y plus 30. Okay? And then now we can do our grouping here. So we have, here we can factor out, or we can write this as y squared plus 5y plus 6y plus 30. And now we can factor out a y from this first term. So I have y times y plus 5. And then here we can factor out a 6 here. So we have plus 6, and we'll have y plus 5. And then we can factor out the y plus 5 term. So we have y plus 5 times y plus 6. Okay. So we also have a much nicer way of doing this, because what you'll notice is that we picked 5 and 6 were our two terms. Okay, but we ended up with 5 and 6 here. So anytime you have a leading coefficient of 1 and you're able to do factoring this way, all you have to do is you have to find two numbers that multiply together to give you 30, add together to give you 11, and then you can write it as y plus the first number, and then times y plus the second number. So let's try this with this next example. Here we have z squared minus 13z plus 12. So we're looking for numbers that multiply together to give us 12 and add together to give us negative 13. Okay, so if we look at factors of 12, we're going to get plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 6, and plus or minus 12. So if we want to get to negative 13, it looks like we're going to need to do negative 12 and negative 1. If we multiply negative 12 times negative 1, we're going to get positive 12. And if we add together negative 12 and negative 1, we're going to get negative 13. So we can actually just go ahead and write this as z minus, so we're adding a negative number here, z minus 12 times z minus 1. And let's go ahead and FOIL this thing out to make sure this is right. So we have z times z, which is going to give us z squared. Okay, z times negative 1 is going to give us minus z. Negative 12 times z is minus 12z. And then negative 12 times negative 1 is plus 12. Or we can write this as z squared minus 13z plus 12. Okay, so if you ever get in a situation where your leading coefficient is 1, hopefully we would agree this is a lot easier, a lot faster, okay? You don't have to do the factoring by grouping or anything. All you really have to do is just write it in this form here. Okay, but let's look at one more example. Here we have 5y squared plus 15y minus 50. Now you can obviously go ahead and do the example where you have AC method, but a better way would be to see, well, can I factor this thing in a way that allows us to have a leading coefficient of 1, and then maybe see if I can factor it the way that I just had it here. So we could factor out a 5 here, so we could divide 5 out from everything, and that would give us y squared plus 3y minus 10. Okay? And then don't forget about this 5. This 5 here is very important, but we're going to kind of ignore it for a minute. So let's go over here with y squared plus 3y minus 10. Use a different color. Y squared plus 3y minus 10. And we're looking now for numbers that multiply together to give us negative 10 and add together to give us 3. So I'm thinking numbers that multiply together to give us negative 10. We can write this as, well, I guess those numbers would be, let's just look at factors of negative 10 first. Whenever you're in doubt, look at factors of negative 10. Okay, so we're going to have plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5, and plus or minus 10. Okay, so we have 1 and 10, both positive and negative. They was multiply together to give us negative 10, but we're not going to be able to add to get negative, or add to get positive 3. So really we're left with 2 and 5. So I'm thinking 5 and negative 2. So we can write this as, y plus 5 times y minus 2. Okay. But remember, we have to remember this 5 out front here. So now this whole thing, we can write as 5 times y plus 5 times y minus